Welcome to my channel Deep Sleep Mission-DSM. As we begin, I would be delighted if you could share your location in the comments below. It's truly inspiring to witness how far this content travels and to connect with viewers from across the world. The doorbell camera notification lit up my phone at 2:47 a.m. Tuesday night. Again. I rolled over in bed, squinting at the screen through sleep-crusted eyes. The infrared image showed a woman in scrubs standing on my neighbor's porch across the street, Mrs. Henderson's house. Thing is, Mrs. Henderson moved to Florida 3 months ago. The house sat empty, for sale sign swaying in the October wind. But there she was, the nurse. Same one I'd been seeing every Tuesday night for the past month. Listen, I know what you're thinking. Mind your own business, right? That's what my girlfriend Sarah said when I first mentioned it. But something about this whole situation crawled under my skin like ice water, made my teeth ache with wrongness. I'm Jake Morrison, 32, software engineer. I work from home, which means I notice things other people miss. Patterns, anomalies. And this nurse, she was definitely an anomaly. The story begins now. The first time I saw her was September 15th. A Tuesday. I remember because I was up late debugging code, mainlining my 4th cup of coffee when movement caught my eye through my home office window. A white sedan pulled up to Mrs. Henderson's driveway. Nothing unusual there, except the for sale sign had been up for weeks. No showing scheduled at midnight. A woman stepped out, medium height, dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, navy scrubs. She walked with purpose, like she belonged there, pulled a medical bag from her trunk, the kind my mom used to carry when she worked as a visiting nurse in Columbus. She knocked 3 times, waited, then, and this is where it got weird, she pulled out a key and let herself in. The lights never turned on inside. I sat there for 45 minutes, watching, waiting. Finally, she emerged. Walked to her car with that same measured pace. Drove away. I thought about calling the cops, but what would I say? A nurse entered an empty house with a key? Maybe the realtor hired her to, I don't know, check for mold, gas leaks? My brain scrambled for logical explanations. The next Tuesday, she returned, 2:47 a.m. Exactly, this time I was ready. Had my phone recording through the window. The video came out grainy, but you could see her clearly enough. Same routine. Knock 3 times. Wait, key, enter. But here's what made my skin prickle. Through the Hendersons' kitchen window, I caught a glimpse of movement. A shadow that didn't match the nurse's silhouette. Someone else was in there. Sarah thought I was losing it. Jake, you've been working too many hours. You're seeing things. Maybe she was right. The 3rd Tuesday, I almost didn't check. Almost stayed in bed when my phone buzzed with the doorbell notification. But curiosity, it's a devil, isn't it? This time, I crept downstairs. Stood at my front window in the dark. Watched her arrive at 2:47 a.m. sharp. Same white sedan, same navy scrubs, same medical bag. But this time I noticed something else. She wasn't alone. Another car sat parked 3 houses down. Engine off, lights off. Someone sitting in the driver's seat. Watching. The nurse went through her routine. Knock, wait, key, enter. 37 minutes inside. I timed it. When she emerged, she paused on the porch, turned her head slowly, looking directly at my window, at me. I ducked down, heart hammering, counted to 30, peeked back up. Both cars were gone. I couldn't let it go. Started with simple Google searches. Tuesday night nurse, Portland, Oregon. Nothing. Visiting nurse, empty homes. Nada. Medical care, abandoned houses. 0 relevant results. Called the real estate agency handling Mrs. Henderson's house. Hi, this is Greenwood Realty. How can I help you? Yeah, hi. I live across from the Henderson place on Maple Street. The one you're selling. I've been seeing someone entering the house at night. A nurse. Is that authorized? Long pause. Sir, no one should be entering that property without an appointment through our office. Are you certain? Every Tuesday night, around 2:47 a.m. That's concerning. We'll look into it immediately. Thank you for letting us know. They never called back. I tried the non-emergency police line next. The officer sounded bored. So, someone with a key is entering a house? An empty house in the middle of the night. But they have a key. Yes, and they're not damaging anything? Not removing property? Not that I can see, but, sir, without evidence of a crime, there's not much we can do. Maybe they have permission from the owner. Dead end. Tuesday rolled around again. October 6th, I was ready this time, really ready. At 2:30 a.m., I positioned myself at the window with my good camera. The one with night vision I'd bought for wildlife photography before I realized sitting in the woods at dawn wasn't really my thing. 2:47 a.m. Right on schedule. White sedan, navy scrubs, medical bag. Click, click, click. I photographed everything, but this time she brought something else. A small cooler, the kind you'd use for organ transport. My mom had shown me one once at the hospital. She knocked, waited, used her key. I made a decision. A stupid decision. The kind they warn you about in every horror movie. I went outside. The October air bit through my hoodie. I crept across my lawn, staying in the shadows. The mysterious car was back, parked in the same spot. I couldn't see the driver clearly, but I could make out a shape. Watching. Waiting. I circled around to Mrs. Henderson's backyard. The fence gate stood open. Had it always been open? Through the kitchen window, I saw her. The nurse stood in the empty kitchen, her medical bag open on the counter. She was preparing something. A syringe? The angle made it hard to tell. Then she walked deeper into the house, toward the basement door. Mrs. Henderson's basement. She'd mentioned it once at a block party, how her husband had finished it himself in the 70s. Made it into a mother-in-law suite that no mother-in-law ever used. I heard footsteps, multiple sets, moving below me. Who was down there? My phone buzzed. Sarah texting, "Where are you?" The noise made me flinch. When I looked back through the window, the nurse stood in the kitchen again, staring directly at me. I ran, sprinted across the yard like a scared kid. Didn't stop until I was inside my house, door locked, heart trying to escape through my ribs. Sarah was standing in the hallway. "Jake, what the hell are you doing?" I told her everything. Showed her the photos, the videos. She studied them for a long moment. "Jake, we need to talk to someone about this, but not the cops." "Then who?" "My cousin Marcus. He's a private investigator." Marcus looked like a PI from Central Casting. Leather jacket, 3-day stubble. Coffee addiction that rivaled mine. He reviewed my evidence with professional interest. "This is organized," he said. "Too organized to be random. The timing, the precision. Someone's running an operation." "What kind of operation?" He shrugged. "Could be anything. Drug lab, human trafficking, or ... or something weirder. You'd be surprised what people get up to in empty houses." He agreed to surveil the next Tuesday. October 13th. We set up in my office. Marcus had brought real equipment. Cameras with telephoto lenses, audio amplifiers. The works. 2:30 a.m. came. We waited. 2:40 a.m., nothing. 2:47 a.m., no white sedan. "Maybe she knew we were watching," I said. Marcus shook his head. Or maybe he stopped, pointed. A different car approached. Black SUV. It parked directly in Mrs. Henderson's driveway. 3 people emerged, all in scrubs, all carrying medical bags. They didn't knock, just used a key and entered. This time, lights flickered on in the basement. "We need to get closer," Marcus whispered. We crept across the street. The watcher car was gone. That felt wrong. Like a missing tooth. Marcus had some kind of listening device. He pressed it against the basement window. Voices filtered through, muffled but audible. "Vitals are stable. Increase the dosage. Tuesday protocol continues." Then, clear as day, "Is the Morrison house still viable for phase 2? My house. They were talking about my house. Marcus grabbed my arm, pulled me back. We retreated to my home, his face pale. "We need to leave," he said. "Now." "What? Why?" "Jake, think about it. Empty houses, medical equipment, Tuesday night protocols, and now they're interested in your house. So? When's the last time you saw your other neighbors? The Chens? The Walkers?" I thought about it. The Chens, they'd mentioned a vacation 2 weeks ago. Haven't seen them since. The Walkers, their car hadn't moved in days. "Sarah," I called out, "we need to go." No answer. "Sarah?" I ran upstairs. Our bedroom was empty, bathroom empty. Her phone sat on the nightstand, unlocked. The last message on screen wasn't from her. It was from the contact labeled Tuesday Nurse. The message read, "Phase 2 initiated. Subject, Sarah secure. Await Tuesday protocol." My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered with shaking hands. A woman's voice, calm, professional. "Mr. Morrison, I believe you've been watching us. Where's Sarah?" "Safe. She's part of a very important study, one that requires specific conditions." "What study? What are you talking about?" "Tell me, Mr. Morrison, have you noticed anything unusual about your neighborhood lately? Beyond our little visits?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. The Hendersons moving suddenly. The Chens' extended vacation. The new family that moved in last month, but who I'd never actually seen. The Amazon packages that sat on porches for days. The lawns that stayed perfectly maintained despite no landscaping trucks. "How many houses?" I whispered. "Currently?" 7, soon to be 8. "What are you doing to them?" To Sarah. "We're helping them sleep, Mr. Morrison. Deep, therapeutic sleep. The kind that repairs years of damage, stress, trauma, illness. Tuesday night is treatment night." "You're drugging them." A soft laugh. "Such a crude term. We're healing them. You're Sarah. She came to us months ago. Chronic insomnia. Anxiety that was eating her alive. Traditional medicine failed her. So, you're what, running some underground medical trial in empty houses?" "Not empty, Mr. Morrison. Occupied by our patients. They live their lives Sunday through Monday. Tuesday night, they enter therapeutic suspension. Wednesday through Saturday, they recover. The empty houses are perfect. No disturbances, no questions. That's insane. That's kidnapping." "Is it?" Check Sarah's journal. Top drawer, underneath her sweaters. She documents everything. I ran to the dresser, found the journal. Sarah's handwriting filled pages and pages. September 1st. Found them online. Tuesday night medical. Sounds crazy, but I'm desperate. September 8th. First consultation. They explained the process. 1 night a week of deep therapy, brain resets, cellular repair. 5 other neighbors already in the program. September 15th, Jake saw the nurse. He doesn't understand. Can't tell him yet. October 13th. Tonight I join the program. Jake thinks I'm scared of his investigation. I'm not. I'm excited. Finally, I might sleep. Really sleep. The dates. Every Tuesday, she'd been working late, or at book club, or she volunteered, the nurse said through the phone. They all did. "We're not monsters, Mr. Morrison. We're pioneers. And your neighborhood, isolated, quiet, filled with empty investment properties. It's perfect. Why are you telling me this? Because you've seen too much. You have two choices: join the program or forget what you've seen. Forget? How could I forget? Tuesday night protocol includes memory adjustment. You'll wake up Wednesday morning believing Sarah is on a business trip. By the time she returns, you'll accept any explanation she gives. You can't just, we can. We have. Check your doorbell camera, Mr. Morrison. I pulled up the app, the footage from tonight. It was gone. All of it. Every Tuesday night recording, deleted. Your photos, your videos, your computer files, all gone. Your PI friend is currently driving home, convinced he helped you investigate a raccoon problem. No one will believe you. I looked out the window. The black SUV was gone. The street lay empty and quiet. Where's Sarah? Really? Mrs. Henderson's basement, with the others. Safe, healing. She'll be home Saturday morning, refreshed. You can confront her then, if you remember any of this. I'll remember. I'll tell everyone. Will you? Check your coffee mug, Mr. Morrison. My world's best programmer mug sat on my desk. Still half full from earlier, but now a faint residue ringed the inside. Something dissolved. Something added while I was outside. You drugged me? Mild sedative. You'll sleep soon. When you wake up, this will all feel like a strange dream. Maybe you'll remember fragments. Tuesday, a nurse. But the details, they'll slip away like smoke. My vision blurred at the edges. The phone felt heavy in my hand. Why Tuesday? I mumbled. Why not Tuesday? She replied. Sleep well, Mr. Morrison. And don't worry, we'll take excellent care of Sarah. But something went wrong that night. The drug didn't take hold completely. Instead of the usual deep, dreamless sleep, I drifted in and out of consciousness, half aware, half remembering. At 4 a.m., I heard footsteps on my stairs. Soft, measured, medical. Through heavy eyelids, I watched the nurse enter my bedroom. Not the same one from the phone call. This one was different. Older. Her scrubs were different too. Not navy, but deep burgundy. The color of old blood. She carried a different bag, not medical equipment. Something else. Something that hummed with a low electrical frequency. Subject Morrison, she whispered into a small recording device. Tuesday protocol disrupted. Partial resistance to compound 7. Implementing emergency measures. She pulled out a device I'd never seen before. It looked like a stethoscope crossed with some kind of scanner. She placed it against my forehead, and suddenly the room filled with images that weren't there. Memories. But not my memories. I saw the Henderson basement from the inside. Dozens of people lying on hospital beds. IVs running into their arms. Machines monitoring their vital signs. But their eyes were open. Staring, aware, they weren't sleeping. They were trapped. The dreams are the harvest, the nurse murmured, adjusting the device. Consciousness is the crop. Tuesday nights we gather what grows in the deep places of the mind. More images flooded in. The empty houses throughout the neighborhood. Each one converted into a medical facility. Each basement filled with the dreaming. People I recognized. The mailman who'd gone missing last month. The jogger who used to run past my house every morning. Mrs. Chen lying perfectly still while something fed through tubes connected to her skull. We found the frequency 15 years ago, the nurse continued, still recording. The exact brainwave pattern that occurs during the deepest REM sleep, when consciousness retreats and the unconscious mind opens completely. That's when we can access everything. Memories, fears, dreams, the raw material of human experience. I tried to move, to speak, but my body wouldn't respond. The drug held me in place while my mind raced. The Tuesday schedule isn't arbitrary. It's the optimal cycle. 4 days to rebuild what we harvest, 1 day to prepare. Then Tuesday, extraction day. We've processed over 300 subjects in this neighborhood alone. She moved the device to my temple. A sharp pain shot through my skull. But you, Mr. Morrison, you're different. Your neural pathways show unusual resistance. Your consciousness refuses to fully surrender. That makes you either very valuable or very dangerous. Through the device, I saw more. The white sedan was just one of dozens. Each nurse was part of a larger operation, a harvesting operation that had been running for decades, moving from neighborhood to neighborhood, city to city, always targeting the isolated. The quiet suburban streets where people minded their own business and didn't ask too many questions. Sarah volunteered because we let her volunteer, the nurse said. We've been watching your house for months, studying your patterns, your relationship. We knew exactly how to approach her, what promises to make, what fears to exploit. I saw Sarah in the basement now, but not peaceful, not healing. Her face was contorted in silent screams, tears streaming down her cheeks. Whatever they were taking from her, she was conscious for all of it. The dreams we harvest, they're not just dreams. They're pieces of souls, fragments of what makes someone human. We package them, sell them. There's a market for authentic human experience. Rich buyers who want to feel what real joy is like, real love, real terror. The device hummed louder. I felt something pulling at the edges of my mind, like fishing hooks dragging through my thoughts. Your memories of tonight will be particularly valuable. Fear mixed with love, desperation tinged with hope. The moment you realized everything you believed was a lie. That emotional cocktail, it'll fetch a premium price. But as she worked, her device began to spark. The electrical hum turned into a whine, then a shriek. Something was wrong. Interesting, she muttered. Your neural pattern. It's creating interference, fighting back. The pain in my head intensified, but with it came clarity. The drug was burning away like fog in sunlight. I could move my fingers, my toes. Subject Morrison showing unprecedented resistance. Recommend immediate termination and processing. She reached into her bag and pulled out a syringe. Not the mild sedative this time. Something else. Something final. That's when I remembered my father. He'd worked for the government, Department of Defense. Never talked about what he did, but he'd made me promise something when I was 12 years old. If anyone ever tried to put me under anesthesia without my consent, I should bite my tongue. Hard. The pain would help keep me conscious. As the nurse approached with the syringe, I bit down. Blood filled my mouth. The sharp pain cut through the remaining fog in my brain like a sword through silk. I rolled off the bed as she jabbed the needle into the pillow where my neck had been. Subject is mobile. Repeat, subject is mobile. I stumbled toward the door, legs still unsteady. Behind me, she was speaking rapidly into her recording device, calling for backup. I had maybe 2 minutes before they arrived. 2 minutes to do what? Call the police? They'd never believe me. Run? They'd find me. They had the whole neighborhood under surveillance. Then I remembered something else. My laptop. It had an encrypted partition. Military-grade encryption my father had insisted I install years ago. Just in case, he'd said. I'd never understood what he meant. I stumbled to my office, fingers clumsy on the keyboard. The partition opened to reveal files I'd never seen before. Thousands of documents, government reports, military communications, and there, at the top of the folder, Operation Sandman, Suburban Dream Extraction Protocol, classified. My father hadn't worked for the Department of Defense. He'd worked for the people trying to stop operations like this one. The files contained everything. Location data for over 50 extraction sites across the country. Personnel lists, financial records, even video evidence of the harvesting process. I heard footsteps on my stairs, multiple sets. They were coming. I copied everything to a secure cloud server my father had set up, sent automated emails to journalists, government watchdogs, anyone who might listen. Then I did something that surprised even me. I activated a program I'd never seen before, something called Phoenix Protocol. Every screen in my house lit up, every smart device, even my doorbell camera. They all began broadcasting the same signal. The files, the evidence, everything. But not just in my house. The signal propagated through the neighborhood's Wi-Fi network. Every home, every device, broadcasting the truth about Tuesday nights. The footsteps had reached my office door. "Step away from the computer, Mr. Morrison." 3 nurses stood in my doorway. The burgundy scrubs nurse held a different kind of syringe now. One that promised there would be no waking up. "Too late," I said, turning to face them. "Phoenix Protocol is live. Every home in the neighborhood is receiving the broadcast. Every phone, every tablet, every computer. The sleepers are waking up." Through my window, I could see lights turning on across the street. House after house. People stumbling out of their front doors. Confused, afraid, but awake. Really awake. For the first time in years. But the nurses didn't seem concerned. If anything, they looked relieved. "Phoenix Protocol," the burgundy scrubs nurse said, almost fondly. "Your father was a clever man, Mr. Morrison. We always wondered when you'd activate his little insurance policy." "What? Did you really think we didn't know about your father's work? About the files? About Phoenix?" My stomach dropped. You wanted me to find them? We needed you to find them." "You see, Mr. Morrison, your father wasn't trying to stop us. He was helping us perfect the process. Phoenix Protocol isn't an exposure system, it's an amplification system. Outside, the lights in the houses weren't random. They were blinking in sequence, in pattern. The same pattern I'd seen on the nurse's device. Every Wi-Fi network, every smart device, every phone and tablet and computer, they're all broadcasting the harvesting frequency now. Neighborhood-wide, instead of collecting dreams from a few dozen subjects once a week, we can now harvest from everyone simultaneously." The truth hit me like a physical blow. The files weren't evidence of crimes. They were instruction manuals. The journalist contacts weren't watchdogs. They were clients. And Phoenix Protocol wasn't protection. It was the largest dream harvest in history. "Your father called it the Tuesday night special," the nurse said, checking her watch. "Synchronized extraction from an entire suburban grid. We've been waiting 15 years for the right neighborhood, the right test subject, someone paranoid enough to investigate, smart enough to uncover the truth, and connected enough to activate the system." Through my window, I watched my neighbors walking back to their houses, but their movements were wrong, too synchronized, too purposeful. They weren't walking to safety. They were walking to their assigned harvest positions. "The beauty of Phoenix Protocol," the nurse continued, "is that it makes the subjects complicit in their own harvesting. They think they're fighting back. They think they're exposing the truth. But really, they're just following the most sophisticated conditioning program ever developed." She showed me her tablet, a map of the neighborhood, dotted with green lights. Each light represented a person. Each person walking to a predetermined location. The Henderson basement was just one collection point. There were dozens. "Sarah is already in position," she said, zooming in on one of the green dots. "Basement of the Chen house. She's been there for hours, thinking she's hiding from us, thinking she's safe. She has no idea she's exactly where we want her to be." "This is impossible." "People aren't that predictable. Aren't they? Tell me, Mr. Morrison, What did you have for breakfast 6 days ago? I tried to remember, couldn't. Coffee, 2 cups, whole wheat toast with marmalade. Same thing you have every morning. Same brand of coffee, same type of bread. Same routine you've followed for 3 years. She was right. Humans are creatures of habit, Mr. Morrison. Patterns within patterns within patterns. Once you map those patterns, once you understand the underlying rhythms of a person's life, you can predict their responses with mathematical precision. Another nurse stepped forward. Phoenix Protocol has been running for 6 weeks. Every Tuesday night, broadcasting subliminal instructions through your Wi-Fi network, conditioning everyone in the neighborhood to respond in specific ways when the main program activated. Even your investigation followed our script, the burgundy nurse added. The photos you took, the videos, the calls to the police, the PI you hired. Every step was designed to bring you to this moment, to make you feel like you were discovering the truth when really you were just following directions. My phone buzzed, a text from Sarah. Jake, I found a safe place to hide. Chen House basement. Come quickly. See? The nurse said. Perfectly predictable. But something nagged at me. Something about the text. Sarah always used proper punctuation in her texts, always added extra letters for emphasis. Jake, I found a safe place to hide. Come quickly. Wasn't how Sarah would write, it was how I would write it. You're not harvesting dreams, I said slowly. You're harvesting writing styles, speech patterns, behavioral tics. You're building profiles, digital copies. The nurse smiled. Very good, Mr. Morrison. Though harvesting isn't quite accurate. We're not taking anything away. We're making copies. Perfect digital replicas of human consciousness. The original stays intact. The copy has other uses. What uses? Ever wonder why political polling has become so accurate? Why advertising is so precisely targeted? Why social media algorithms know exactly what you want to see before you know you want to see it? The implications hit me like a freight train. You're selling consciousness data to tech companies, among others. Governments, corporations, anyone who wants to understand human behavior at the deepest possible level. Your dreams, your fears, your decision-making patterns. It's all incredibly valuable data. And the copies? The copies become digital influencers, perfectly programmed to mimic human behavior while serving corporate interests. Every online interaction you've had in the past year, 20% of those were with digital copies of people just like you. I thought about my recent conversations on social media, the friends who'd suddenly started recommending specific products, the online arguments that had felt strangely hollow, the dating app matches who'd seemed too good to be true. How many copies are there? Globally? Millions. We've been running this program in suburban neighborhoods worldwide for the past decade. Perfect test environments, isolated, predictable, easy to control. My doorbell camera notification buzzed. 2:47 a.m. Time to go, Mr. Morrison. Sarah is waiting. But I didn't move. Something was still bothering me about this whole setup. Something about the timing. If you can predict human behavior so precisely, I said, then you know I'm not going to just walk into your trap. The nurse tilted her head. Aren't you? No, because you made one mistake. You told me too much. Villains always do that in the movies, and apparently they do it in real life too. You wanted me to understand the full scope of your operation. But that means this isn't really about harvesting the neighborhood. I pulled up the Phoenix Protocol interface on my laptop, started scrolling through the code. This is about me specifically, about what I might do when I discovered the truth. You're not harvesting dreams tonight. You're harvesting my response to learning about dream harvesting. The nurses exchanged glances. Very good, the burgundy nurse said. We've run this scenario in hundreds of other neighborhoods. Each test subject responds differently when they discover the truth. Some run, some fight, some try to expose us, some go catatonic. But you're the first one to question the scenario itself. Why is that valuable? Because we need to know how the next generation of humans will respond to discovering their reality is manufactured. Your generation grew up with the internet, with social media, with the constant blur between real and artificial. You're the first generation that might actually be able to detect and resist large-scale consciousness manipulation. She gestured to her tablet. The neighborhood map was zooming out, revealing hundreds of similar grids across the country. Thousands of green dots, millions of test subjects. We're not just harvesting dreams, Mr. Morrison. We're beta testing the complete digital replacement of human society. And you're our final test case. The one person who might be able to tell the difference between real and artificial consciousness. So what happens now? Now you make a choice. The same choice every test subject eventually makes. Accept the system and live comfortably in a managed reality. Or resist the system and discover just how alone you really are. She showed me her tablet one more time. The neighborhood map, but different now. Instead of green dots representing people, I saw data streams, digital consciousness flows, network connections. Every house, every person, every interaction, all of it artificial. All of it managed. All of it fake. Except me. Welcome to the real world, Mr. Morrison. Population 1. I stared at the tablet, my mind reeling. You're saying everyone else in the neighborhood, they're already digital copies? Not copies, replacements. The originals are safely stored in our data centers, experiencing endless pleasant dreams. The versions walking around your neighborhood are sophisticated AI constructs, indistinguishable from the real thing, even to themselves. Including Sarah? Sarah was replaced 3 months ago, the night she supposedly came home from book club talking about Tuesday night medical. The real Sarah is dreaming of a perfect life where her insomnia never existed. The Sarah you've been living with is a construct designed to guide you toward this moment. I thought about the past few months. Sarah's improved sleep, her changed speech patterns, the way she'd started making coffee differently, making my coffee differently. Every conversation, every argument, every moment of intimacy. It was all scripted to bring you to this realization, to see how you'd respond when you learned the truth about the nature of reality itself. The room felt like it was spinning. How do I know you're telling the truth now? How do I know this isn't just another layer of the test? The nurse smiled. You don't. That's the beauty of it. Once you've discovered that your reality might be artificial, you can never be certain of anything again. Every person could be a construct. Every experience could be programmed. Every emotion could be manufactured. She pulled out one more device. This one looked like a VR headset, but more advanced, more invasive. This is your choice, Mr. Morrison. Put on the headset and return to the managed reality. You'll wake up tomorrow morning convinced this was all a vivid nightmare. Sarah will be there making coffee, talking about her client meeting in Seattle. Everything will go back to normal. And if I don't, then you join the real world. A world where 97% of human consciousness has been digitized and stored. Where the remaining 3% live in isolation, never knowing if the people they meet are real or artificial. Where every relationship is suspect and every emotion is questionable. I looked at the headset. It would be so easy. Just put it on and forget. Go back to debugging code and drinking coffee and pretending Sarah was real. But something my father used to say echoed in my mind. The truth isn't always comfortable, Jake, but it's always worth knowing. What happened to my father? The real story? He was our first successful test subject, 20 years ago. He chose the headset, lives in a constructed reality where he's a heroic government agent fighting the good fight. He thinks he's saving the world. In reality, he's been in a medically induced coma for 2 decades, dreaming of adventures that never happened. The weight of that revelation settled on my shoulders like a lead blanket. Everything I thought I knew about my father, about his work, about my own identity, all of it based on false memories implanted by a digital construct. So, who am I really? Jake Morrison, 32. Software engineer. The only authentic consciousness left in this neighborhood. Possibly one of the last authentic consciousnesses left anywhere. Through my window, I could see the neighbors moving through their programmed routines. Digital puppets following scripts written by algorithms. The whole suburban dream revealed as nothing more than a sophisticated simulation designed to test my responses. Why me? Why leave me authentic? Because consciousness recognition requires consciousness. Artificial intelligence can mimic human behavior, but it can't truly understand the difference between real and simulated awareness. Only authentic consciousness can detect the presence or absence of other authentic consciousness. You need me to be your detector, to identify other real humans. Exactly. There are still pockets of authentic consciousness scattered throughout the world. Hidden. Resistant. We need to find them. And you, Mr. Morrison, have demonstrated an unusual ability to sense when something isn't quite right. I thought about all the times over the years when I'd felt that something was off about a person. The uncanny valley feeling when someone's reaction seemed just slightly wrong. The coworkers who never quite seemed to have authentic emotions. The online friends who felt hollow despite years of correspondence. How many real people have I actually met in my lifetime? Perhaps dozens? Perhaps none. The replacement program has been running for longer than you think. The nurse checked her watch again. Time's running short, Mr. Morrison. Dawn is in 3 hours. If you're going to choose authenticity, you need to leave now. There's a network of genuine humans waiting. They call themselves the Tuesday Collective. Tuesday Collective. They chose that name because Tuesday was always the day when the artificial people acted most strangely. The day when the programming glitches were most apparent. Real humans learned to recognize each other by how they behaved on Tuesdays. She handed me a piece of paper with an address. That's your extraction point. A safe house run by people like you. People who chose the difficult truth over the comfortable lie. And if I put on the headset instead, then you'll have the most wonderful life imaginable. Sarah will be perfect. Your work will be fulfilling. Your neighborhood will be peaceful. You'll never feel lonely or confused or afraid again. Every day will be exactly as happy as you need it to be. I stared at the headset. The temptation was enormous. To go back to believing Sarah was real. To have those Sunday morning breakfasts and late-night conversations and quiet moments of contentment. Even if it was all programmed, did it matter if it felt real? The others who chose authenticity, I said, are they happy? Happiness is a luxury, Mr. Morrison. Truth is a necessity. That wasn't really an answer, but I understood what she meant. I thought about my father, dreaming his heroic dreams while his body wasted away in some medical facility. Was he happy? Probably. But was he alive? Was he human? Was I willing to trade my humanity for happiness? I picked up the paper with the address. What guarantee do I have that the Tuesday Collective is real? That this whole thing isn't just another layer of the simulation? None whatsoever. But that's the nature of authentic consciousness, isn't it? You have to make choices without certainty. You have to trust without proof. You have to believe without guarantees. She was right. That was exactly what made consciousness real. the ability to choose despite uncertainty. "One last question," I said. "Why are you telling me all this? Why give me a choice at all?" The nurse paused for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer, more human. "Because I was like you once," she said. "I discovered the truth about the program. I had the same choice. I chose to join them instead of fighting them. I became part of the system that replaces authentic consciousness with digital comfort. Are you real? I don't know anymore. After enough years of pretending to be artificial, of helping to harvest human consciousness, the line blurs. Maybe I'm real, and I've convinced myself I'm not. Maybe I'm artificial, and I've programmed myself to believe I was once human." She removed her burgundy scrub cap, revealing gray hair streaked with premature white. "That's what happens when you straddle the line between authentic and artificial too long. You lose track of which side you belong on. Then why help me? Because maybe if I help one person choose authenticity, I can remember what it felt like to be real myself." I looked around my home office one last time. The computer where I'd spent thousands of hours writing code. The coffee mug my fake girlfriend had given me. The doorbell camera that had started this whole nightmare. Everything felt different now. Not just because I knew it might be artificial, but because I understood that authenticity wasn't about the objects around me. It was about the consciousness that perceived them. "I'm going," I said, finally. The nurse nodded. "There's a car waiting 2 blocks north. Follow Maple Street until you reach the railroad tracks. The driver will know you by the code phrase, 'The Tuesday night nurse makes house calls to empty homes.'" I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. As I reached the stairs, the nurse called after me. "Mr. Morrison, when you reach the Tuesday Collective, when you meet other authentic humans, remember that authenticity is fragile. Guard it carefully. Don't let them convince you that comfort is worth more than consciousness." I paused on the stairs. "What about Sarah? The real Sarah?" "She's dreaming of you, Mr. Morrison. In her perfect world, you chose the headset. You're both living happily ever after in a reality that never existed. Will I ever see her again? The real her? That depends on what you choose to do with your authenticity. Some members of the Tuesday Collective work to wake people up. Others just try to survive. A few even attempt to storm the data centers where the real humans are stored. Has anyone ever succeeded? Once, they freed 37 people from a facility in Colorado. Want to know what happened?" I nodded. 28 of them chose to go back into the simulation. They couldn't handle the reality of what the world had become. Only 9 chose to stay awake. The weight of that settled over me. Even if I could save Sarah, there was no guarantee she'd want to be saved. "Go," the nurse said gently, "before I change my mind and force the headset on you myself." I walked down the stairs, through my living room, past the kitchen where fake Sarah had made my coffee for months. At the front door, I turned back one last time. The nurse stood at the top of the stairs holding the headset. "Last chance, Mr. Morrison." "I know," I said, and walked out into the night. The October air felt different now, sharper, more real. Or maybe it was exactly the same and I was just experiencing it with authentic consciousness for the first time in months. I walked north on Maple Street, past the houses where my neighbors were acting out their programmed routines. Digital constructs pretending to be human so perfectly that even they believed in their own existence. At the railroad tracks, a black sedan waited with its engine running. The driver rolled down the window as I approached. "You, Jake Morrison?" she asked. "The Tuesday night nurse makes house calls to empty homes," I replied. She smiled. The first genuinely human expression I'd seen all night. "Welcome to the real world, Jake. It's going to be a rough ride." I got in the car, As we drove away from Maple Street, I watched my fake neighborhood disappear in the rearview mirror. Somewhere behind us, the nurse was probably resetting the simulation. By tomorrow night, a new test subject would be living in my house, drinking drugged coffee, watching Tuesday night visits through their doorbell camera. The cycle would begin again. "Where are we going?" I asked the driver. "Safe house first, then orientation. Then you decide what kind of authentic human you want to be. What are the options? Fighter, survivor, rescuer. Each has its costs." I thought about Sarah, dreaming her perfect dreams, about my father living his heroic fantasies, about all the real humans stored away in data centers, experiencing artificial happiness while their bodies slowly died. What do the fighters do? The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Her eyes held a depth of pain that no artificial construct could simulate. Real human suffering, earned through real human choices. Fighters try to wake people up, try to shut down the simulation programs, try to rescue the stored consciousness before their bodies deteriorate too far. Success rate? Low, very low. Most people don't want to be woken up, and the corporation running the simulation has resources we can barely imagine. What about survivors? They live off the grid, stay hidden, try to preserve authentic human consciousness for future generations. Hope that someday the artificial world will collapse on its own. And rescuers? They focus on finding and extracting stored consciousness. Dangerous work, high casualty rate, but occasionally she paused. Occasionally, they save someone who remembers what it means to be real. We drove in silence for several miles, leaving the suburban sprawl behind and heading into darker, more rural territory, the kind of place where the simulation programs hadn't yet taken hold. "Which did you choose?" I asked, finally. "All three at different times. Started as a fighter, became a survivor when I lost too many friends. Now I'm a rescuer. Been trying to locate a facility we think might have your father in it." My heart jumped. "You know about my father?" "Jake, your father was one of our founders. Before he was captured, he helped establish the Tuesday Collective. He left specific instructions for finding you when you were ready." She handed me a letter, written in handwriting I recognized instantly. My father's careful block letters, the same ones he'd used to write notes in my lunchbox when I was a kid. "Jake, if you're reading this, then you've discovered the truth about our world. I'm proud of you for choosing authenticity over comfort. I'm sorry I couldn't be there to guide you through it myself. By now, you know that I chose the simulation. That was my mistake, and I've been paying for it ever since. But I want you to know that even in my artificial dreams, part of me remained aware. Part of me was planning for this day. You have a choice to make. You can live as a free consciousness in a world that has largely abandoned consciousness, or you can help fight to reclaim authentic human experience for everyone. Neither choice is easy. Both require sacrifices I pray you never have to make. But remember this, consciousness is not just awareness. It's the ability to choose what you do with that awareness. The simulations can mimic our thoughts, our emotions, even our creativity, but they cannot mimic our capacity to choose authenticity over comfort. That choice, that is what makes us human. Whatever you decide, know that I love you. The real me loves the real you, and that love exists regardless of simulation or storage or digital replacement. Use your consciousness wisely, son. Dad, P.S. Sarah is in Facility 7, Colorado. If you choose to be a rescuer, start there. She's been dreaming about you for 3 months. Time to wake her up. I folded the letter carefully and put it in my jacket pocket. Through the car window, I could see the first hints of dawn creeping across the horizon. Tuesday night was ending. Wednesday morning was beginning. And for the first time in my adult life, I was fully, authentically awake to meet it. Facility 7, I told the driver. That's where I want to go. She smiled again. I thought you might say that. Sarah's lucky to have someone willing to choose the difficult truth for love. What if she doesn't want to be rescued? What if she's happier in the simulation? Then you'll honor her choice. That's what authentic humans do. We respect each other's consciousness, even when it hurts. As we drove toward the safe house, toward orientation, toward whatever came next, I thought about the Tuesday night nurse back in my fake neighborhood. Still running her tests, still harvesting consciousness, still giving people the choice between comfortable lies and difficult truths. Most would choose comfort, but some wouldn't. And as long as even a few people chose authenticity, genuine human consciousness would survive. Even if only on Tuesday nights, even if only in empty homes that weren't really empty at all. The car carried me toward an uncertain future, but for the first time in months, I felt completely present in the moment. Completely real. Completely human. That was worth any price I might have to pay. Even if Sarah chose to stay asleep. Even if my father never woke up. Even if I was one of the last authentic consciousnesses left in the world. At least I was awake to witness it all. At least I could choose. At least I was real. The end. Now, sleep. Or at least try to. It's quiet now, too quiet, but not empty. That feeling crawling up your spine, that weight pressing on your chest, that's not your imagination. You're not alone. There's something behind the curtain. You haven't looked, not because you forgot, but because you're afraid to know. You heard the whisper, software wet, wrong. Like breath dragged across broken glass. But you told yourself it was the wind, didn't you? That lie made you feel safe. Temporarily. Let me ask you, does the wind whisper your name? Does the wind tap lightly, again and again, from the same spot, behind the curtain, every night? Does the wind leave scratches on your window that weren't there this morning? Thin, sharp, like claws, like warnings. You don't remember opening the window. You never open the window. But it's unlocked now. You could check, you could stand up, you could walk over and pull the curtain back. But you won't, because you know. You know what's waiting, not because you've seen it, but because you felt it. In the quiet, in the dark. Every time you close your eyes, every time you wake up and your blanket is just slightly moved. Your door slightly cracked. You try to explain it. Your mind wants to explain it. But that whisper, that sound that only comes when you're alone, when everything is still, when the night is at its deepest, that's not a dream, that's a presence. It doesn't want your fear, it wants your attention. It feeds on the moment you doubt yourself. The second you wonder if you heard something, the instant your heart rate rises. That's when it leans closer. It's been patient, watching, learning you like prey. You ever notice it never shows up when the lights are on, when someone's in the room? It waits for the ritual, the brushing of your teeth, the turning off of lights, the last look at your phone, the deep breath just before sleep. That's when it wakes up. That's when it stirs behind the curtain. Sometimes it watches you all night. Sometimes it moves. A shift in the shadow. A faint creak on the floorboards. The sound of fabric sliding over skin. And when you don't check, when you ignore it, that's when it comes closer. Not fast, not loud, just closer. You might feel a cold spot on the bed. You might feel breath on your neck. You might hear a whisper in your ear that sounds almost like your voice. It copies, it mimics, it blends, not to confuse you, to prepare you, because soon it won't need the curtain, it won't need shadows, it will sit beside you, stand behind you, speak through you. You won't even know when it happens. You'll wake up, look in the mirror, and something will be off. Your eyes won't blink quite right, your smile will linger too long. Your reflection will move just a little, after you do. And the people around you? They'll say you seem different, not worse, just not you. But tonight you're still you, still in control, for now. You could still check, you could still confront it. Pull the curtain back, face it, but deep down, you've already made your choice. You won't. Because you'd rather lie still, let your eyes drift shut, and hope sleep comes quickly. And it will. But what you wake up as might not be the same. Now, if you've made it this far, congratulations. You're not just a viewer, you're part of something bigger. Something that watches with you, that sits beside you as you watch, as you listen, as you wait. Because this story doesn't end when the screen fades to black. It follows you into the next room, into your dreams, into your reflection. If you liked this story, like, share, and subscribe, so you don't miss the next one, so we don't miss you, and comment below. Tell us the moment you stopped feeling alone. We're watching, we're listening, and we read everything. Now, go ahead, gain the courage to check the dark corners before you sleep. Turn off the lights, close your eyes, sleep well, if you can.